Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on this Monday. We like to get things started off on Mondays, but wanted to welcome you all as we share some information, some more information about StartToday apprenticeship funding that's now become available, as well as talking through a little bit about what the process is like when it comes to registering or building a registered apprenticeship program, and maybe what that looks like long term, what some of those responsibilities are, and kind of how that looks. So we do have a guest today, and really what's important to know is that nationally for registered apprenticeships, there's a registered apprenticeship national system. And in South Dakota, what's really great about our structure when it comes to registered apprenticeships is that we have our Department of Labor in South Dakota that receives some grant funding to be able to help expand registered apprenticeships, to be able to provide services and support to sponsors and apprentices. But then we also have a federal employee that works for the Office of Apprenticeship that really provides that direct oversight and monitoring and approval of all of our registered apprenticeship programs. So I wanted to welcome him here today to share information with all of you as well. So I'm going to have John introduce himself to all of you and maybe add a little bit more to the role that I missed. John.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. John Bolger, as Tara alluded, I am the state director with the Office of Apprenticeship. That sometimes is misleading when we use the term state director because you think that I'm with the state. I am, however, federal. And as Tara mentioned, we do have a database for all apprenticeship activity. I monitor that, as well as giving final oversight to approval for all programs that are in the state. I'm kind of your Q&A guy. If you have any questions, I will always have the answer, or we'll have the answer very shortly for you. Don't know much more what you want about this. I've been here since 2010. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, coming up on 17 years this year that I've been working with the apprenticeship system. So we are always here to help you, and that is our number one role. So as you work through this, please jot your questions down, and as Tara mentioned, at the end we will answer all your questions.
Awesome. Thanks, John. And like he said, him working with apprenticeships for as long as he always has the answer or has dealt with a situation that's similar, and always is a really great resource for sponsors and for us too at our level. So really what's really great about this is that it's a really great partnership between what John does at the federal level and then what we can do to help expand apprenticeships across the state. So thanks, John, for that intro. And yep. We just wanted to, there's John's name, and he's with the Office of Apprenticeship. And we talked a little bit about the difference in the roles between what John does as the state director when it comes to all the program oversight, and a little bit with Department of Labor. We kind of have some of those grant opportunities, some staffing to help provide some of that technical assistance to sponsors, which we'll kind of talk about later when it comes to what the process looks like for developing registered apprenticeships. But what's always nice to talk through and to really always kind of review is really what makes an apprenticeship a registered apprenticeship program, because there's different people talk about it differently. Sometimes businesses will say, oh, I have an apprenticeship program, I trained somebody on the job. But really what makes a registered program are really these 5 components that you see. And first being that employer industry involvement is a must. It's a requirement. Employers are the ones that hire the apprentices. They select them and they put them into the program, and they pay the apprentices their wages. So they are really a fairly vital, key, required component for every registered apprenticeship. Then there's the structured on-the-job learning with the support of a mentor. So businesses will provide that direct on-the-job learning that's on site at the business where they're learning hands-on pieces with the assistance of an expert or somebody who is considered a journey worker, mentoring that apprentice throughout the program. So that mentoring component is one of those required pieces for a registered apprenticeship as well. Then there is related instruction, and this is really the educational component for apprenticeships and registered apprenticeships. They are really a training program that combines on-the-job learning and some education, and those two put together really help to get that highly skilled employee or apprentice. And when you combine that learning, a lot of times with apprenticeships, that learning is done at the same time, or they're getting education while they're being able to put what they're learning hands-on at the business. So that learning is also they're learning at a faster rate, and they're able to retain that information better because they're able to put what they're learning directly in the work that they're doing. Then progressive wage increases, those are built in to every apprenticeship. As apprentices are learning and getting more skills, they're getting rewarded for the skills that they're gaining. So those are built into every registered apprenticeship. And then upon completion, every apprentice receives a nationally recognized occupational credential that they can take anywhere in the country. And one of the things that I always like to give an example of is some of those things we hear with businesses. Like I could put a few chairs and desks in my basement and call it a school. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I am certified to teach or have an accreditation or should be teaching. I probably shouldn't be teaching young people in a school. But that's really what the great thing about registered apprenticeships are. A lot of workforce training programs include those first two components: employers, on-the-job learning. But what really sets registered apprenticeships apart are those last three components. That's what makes them so valuable and so important when it comes to training our future workforce, is that educational component and those wage increases and that credential that comes out of it. And then every apprenticeship really has a focus on diversity, equality, and safety, which we'll talk about later when it comes to equal opportunity and things like that. So when it comes to building registered apprenticeships, we kind of have a graphic up here for you to look at and to kind of see what the process looks like when it comes to exploring, if it's an option for you, then to launching your program. But we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of these. So when it comes to exploring, that really is where you as a sponsor, potential sponsor, might be looking at how is this the right fit for us? Is this something that could work for our company? These are going to be times where you might be talking with either John or somebody on the StartToday team about some of your needs. We'll have a discovery session with you to talk through really what your vision and your goals are as a company, and maybe how apprenticeship can fit into one or multiple positions or occupations within your business. And that's where we'll kind of determine some of those things, maybe potential partnerships that can come out of your apprenticeship, and really just determine those next steps in what you want to do as a company. Then moves into the design phase. Once you as a sponsor or as an organization want to move forward and work to design a program, that's where our team at DLR, the StartToday team, will work with you to kind of identify how do we fit those components in that we talked through. Maybe what types of programs do we want to build? There's different ways to train people when it comes to the apprenticeship model. There's different training types like time-based or competency-based. We won't run into those and how the different programs can be built, but there's different options. And that's where this design phase will really walk through what's best for your company, your program, and that training. Then if there's any partnerships that need to be established or developed, the StartToday team, we can help make some of those connections or have some resources available. We always have John to reach out to see if he has anything that he knows of that can lead to some of those collaborative partnerships to help customize that training program. A lot of times with partnerships, that kind of really incorporates that related instruction and some of the educational components that businesses tend to lean on some support in doing that. And those are those resources that we have available that we can help connect you with. Then building is really the fun part. That's when our team at StartToday will work with sponsors to help identify some of those final pieces when it comes to the training program. We'll clarify some of the work processes and some of the on-the-job training pieces and some of that educational components, identifying the wage scale, really just kind of finalizing what you want to see for your program. That's that building phase. And then once the program is built, then that's where we get to this launch phase, and that's where the final pieces are completed. And that's where, with our support, we will kind of polish them, get them ready, and then John gets those and reviews them to make sure that they meet all of those standards and that they are ready for approval and registration on the national level. Okay, so this kind of gives you a little bit of a bird's eye view of kind of where both Department of Labor, StartToday, and where Office of Apprenticeship and John comes in. You know, our team at StartToday will probably work more with you in the beginning stages when we're working on building the program and kind of figuring out what your needs are. Then when it comes to approval and launching, that's going to be a lot of what John's going to be doing and assisting with. It's going to be how to finalize it, how to get it approved, and how to get it registered within the national database, so that's where you can have that tracking system for you as well. And then when it comes to monitoring and reviewing, making sure you have all your needs ongoing with the program, that's going to be something that John really has a lot of ownership of within what he does in his role. Anything I missed, John? Anything you want to add yet?
No, the folks that are on, are they already all approved, or is this an information?
This is an informational session.
One of the things to remember then, and Tara touched on it briefly, is when we talk about this being a registered program and we talk about accreditation, that's an important word to remember. I don't want to change. If you have an in-house apprenticeship program that you're working with and it's very successful, I don't really want to change that. We just want to validate that, and we want to accredit your training. And at the end, we're going to give you that completion certificate, which is akin to a college degree. They're spending 2 to 4 years going through their craft, whatever their trade may be. And once they complete, I'm giving them this completion certificate or diploma, if you even want to call it that. So that's what this is all about, is really validating what you're doing, recognizing your efforts on a national level, and then recognizing those apprentices' efforts once they turn out with that completion certificate.
Nicely put, John. Thank you for that. I think it's sometimes it's and the way John just explained it too, sometimes registered apprenticeship can feel like it's overwhelming or it's a lot or you have to change a lot. But what John said is really great, in that it's really a validation of what you're doing and registering it and having it be a national program, which is awesome. Thanks, John, for clarifying that. Okay, so now I'm going to call on John a little bit more for some of this to talk through maybe what it looks like for sponsors and what some of their responsibilities are when it comes to after they're registered, John. You know, when it comes to having a registered program, you do need to have those 5 components covered. Safety is a real priority and is written into every program. Then there has to be a ratio of, typically, most cases, there's a ratio of 1 apprentice to 1 journey worker, unless it's otherwise approved by Office of Apprenticeship. And John can touch on that a little bit if he has more thoughts.
Yeah, real quick then. That ratio, 1 to 1, is always going to apply for any construction trade. Always. It's just the standard, and we can petition to have a higher ratio. You have to submit your OSHA records, the why behind it, what you're looking to gain, and then I have to actually submit that to national office. It's very rare that they approve anything above a 1 to 1 ratio for anything construction related. However, with that said, we are starting to develop some non-traditional apprenticeship programs. We have pharmacy tech, we have surge medical techs, we have LPNs, we're working on RN. Those don't necessarily need a 1 to 1 ratio. Or if we had a chef, we actually have a chef program here. Those don't need to necessarily be on a 1 to 1 ratio. We can get a higher ratio approved very quickly on that one. So if it's a non-traditional type programming where, you know, safety and your life isn't in danger and you're working maybe a computer or a register or in an office, then we can always approve a higher ratio.
So that would mean like one trainer could essentially be training more than 1 apprentice at one time, right?
Yes.
Okay, good, awesome. Like equal opportunity I think that's always important. And I feel like that comes up a lot when it comes to sponsorship of registered apprenticeships, what that looks like, what that means. Do you want to touch on that at all, John? Like
That's fine. You
what
bet.
equal?
So
Thank you.
EEO in the world of apprenticeships and the development of your standards has a very different meaning than what you may have as an EEO clause or statement for your employer.
Right.
When it comes to EEO and apprenticeships, we are concerned with how are we going to get underrepresented populations to apply for the apprenticeship and hopefully go through the process to be approved. Our numbers here aren't the greatest when it comes to minority, but our population is the same. It's reflective. So as long as you have a statement in there that says, you know, we're going to be advertising this position with these special groups to try to increase underrepresented populations, that's really what this comes down to. We just want to see that there's an effort being made to increase those applicants, and hopefully the more applicants we get, you know, the more that carry through to the apprenticeship. That's the nuts and bolts of the EEO when it comes to registered apprenticeship.
Yep, just making sure that everyone has equal opportunity to be able to participate, but they do have their own selection process, and make the sponsor and the business make that determination as to who enters into the apprenticeship, right, John?
I keep muting myself. Yes.
It's okay. You're good. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. So then the RAPID system is Office of Apprenticeships national database where all things apprenticeship or your registered apprenticeship is tracked. And that's really what John will see. We'll be able to have access to program stuff. And when it comes to apprentices and their tracking, it stands for, it's an acronym. We love acronyms in government, right, John?
Yes.
But it stands for Registered Apprenticeship Partners Information Database System. So really it's the partners that are housing and leading those registered apprenticeship efforts have access and are able to enter in their information into Rapids. And that's where your program information is, your apprentice information is. And that is a system that like the Department of Labor and like StartToday team, we don't have access to that. It's not something we're in. That's something that the sponsors have access to, and they're able to enter those things. And that's something that John oversees and monitors. Sometimes we get questions on Rapids, and a lot of times we have to pull John in to fix some things or update some things that are in a Rapid system. Do you have anything else that you want to add about Rapids, John?
Once an employer becomes a sponsor, that's the best time to try to figure out the Rapids portion. It's pretty detailed at times. It's not overwhelming. It's not too difficult to navigate, but that's something we'll cross when we get to the approval point.
Mm-hmm. But it's pretty manageable for most sponsors, you feel?
Yes.
Yep. Is it?
It is. It's pretty user friendly. It does have glitches. It's not perfect, but it's a decent system.
Yeah, good. And I feel like the people that use it, you know, essentially this wouldn't take over, Rapid system wouldn't really take over what you do internally, right? Like don't sponsors typically have their own like internal tracking too, and they just kind of put in what they need to for this?
Correct. They'll have their own records keeping that they do internally. The Rapid system is merely a registration database to let the apprentices sit there. We don't put records into Rapids for the apprentices. We don't update. We don't do that. It's not meant for that.
It's not like their personnel records. So really, when you say, John, that we're not changing, you're not changing anything they're already doing. They're already tracking it. They're already have their own database, their own method of personnel records that they already are doing. They're going to keep that. This is just something they'll just enter in apprentices into and just have them there. Got it. Okay. So this section, we did have a webinar 2 weeks ago that really walked through some additional funding that Department of Labor has available for registered apprenticeships and sponsors. So we just wanted to touch on this again. We do have another recording that really walked through this pretty in depth on our website that you can go check out. But we wanted to run through this again because how the StartToday program works is we have different funding opportunities and grants that help us to expand registered apprenticeships in South Dakota. And recently, you might have heard, Governor Nome has expressed her support of registered apprenticeships through some funding through the state, which is really exciting. So with that, we're able to really do some cool things that we've never been able to do before to help support apprenticeships and apprentices in South Dakota. So really, it's broken down into two different sections of funding. And the first one is program development and expansion incentives. So new sponsors who want to develop a training program and want to create a registered apprenticeship, we have funding to support them in that effort, up to $15,000 for new program development. And then if there's current sponsors out there that are looking to expand their program in some way, there's some financial incentive for that as well. It's up to $10,000. And then we also have financial services that are really designed to support registered apprentices, but also will support the business in those efforts as well. So we have financial services for related instruction or the educational component if it's provided through an outside vendor like a technical college or somebody else providing that related training. There can be reimbursements up to $6,500 for that training, which can go a long way with an apprenticeship program and get some really quality education within there. Then we also have wage reimbursement, financial assistance for both the apprentice and that journey worker that's being pulled off of the work that they're doing to help train somebody new. We have wage reimbursements for the business for that. Supportive services for apprentices if they have any barriers to participate in the training, or if they have any equipment needs or tools, things like that, we'll be able to support apprentices with some of those funds. And then we also have an incentive for mentors to be to help train the new generation of workforce to be able to support them in that as well. So that is just a short breakdown of the financial assistance that we have available. We do have those listed on our website and also in our policy that we can link, and maybe someone from the StartToday team can throw that in the chat for people who are on so they can pull that up and look at those opportunities further. You can always reach out to us too if you have more questions on that. But that kind of really sums up really just our general, what we wanted to talk about when it comes to sponsor responsibilities and what it looks like to build a program. Like John said, sometimes some of the pieces we can get really far down a rabbit hole when it comes to some things, but that's really what's great about having a team of people to be able to serve as a point of contact for businesses and sponsors. We have a StartToday team, and if you guys want to turn your cameras on, we can introduce you quick. You guys can introduce yourselves and where you're from. But really, we have a team of people now that serve as points of contact for sponsors to be able to help with some of that technical assistance as we're building programs, that we can answer some of those questions along the way, because sometimes it can get confusing. And then we have a nice direct line to John when it comes to oversight, ongoing technical assistance, and that registration and final approval. So you guys just want to introduce yourselves and where you're from?
Hi, I'm Ashley Ivica. I'm from the Brookings local office, so located in Brookings.
Hi, my name is Bill Christensen. I am located out of the Rapid City office.
My name is Mason Sullivan, and I'm located in the Madison office.
And I am Rebecca Ortmeyer, and I am in the Sioux Falls office.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So they kind of told you where they're from, which is nice because they very spread out throughout the state. However, this team is really dedicated to serving the state. So really our goal is not to just serve people in our own areas, because we have sponsors and businesses all over our state that are interested in wanting to develop an apprenticeship program. So it doesn't really matter where you're located at, we'll be able to have somebody serve you. And we are looking to fill additional positions for apprenticeship coordinators to be able to meet the need for lots of referrals that are coming in and businesses that are looking to build programs. So this currently is the team of people that would be assigned to you. But we really wanted to just introduce them to you so you know that you'd have a point of contact as you're building the program. You're not in it alone. We would help you through that process. And then we also have John, who helps us through and answers questions when it comes to those ongoing pieces and that monitoring. So thanks, guys, for introducing yourselves. John, anything you have to add or that we missed that you want to hit on?
No, I'm just waiting to see if there's any questions here. I don't see any in the chat at all, so we must have explained it very well.
Yeah, here's hoping. But I'm gonna have Rebecca. I think Rebecca might help us with the chat questions, John, and read them.
Got one just came up from Jacqueline Wilbur. Jacqueline, that's kind of it can go either way. If you have a local representative, I would prefer you contact them and work through that. They're basically the first line on this one, that they'll do the initial talks. They have the best knowledge about what monies are available with state monies. I don't offer federal monies. We give those grants out and then the state disperses those. So I would really recommend that you first contact your local DLR, find out who your apprenticeship rep is, and have them work through that process with you.
Good question, Jacqueline. Thank you.
Didn't mean to jump all over you there, Rebecca. I just kind of saw that quickly.
It's okay.
You're good.
Doesn't seem like there's any other questions. If anybody does have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat and we will answer them as we get to them.
How else can they connect with us? I'm putting our email in the chat, and there's also, if you go to our website right here, which is starttodaysd.com, there is a form on there that you can fill out if you're interested, and that will connect you directly to our team. And then we can reach out and get you assigned to somebody, or just like John said, you can reach out to your local office and see who your contact is and get connected that way as well. So there's no one Rebecca on there.
Okay. You got it? You want me to do it?
I can read the question for you and then you guys can answer. Is that okay?
You bet.
Sounds
Go for
good.
it.
Okay. So Michaela Rogers is asking, what costs do we have in building the program? And does the state charge a fee for your time in helping?
I always
Good
try to
question.
break some jokes about this that it just costs a state dinner. But the reality is that this is taxpayers' money pay for all of this. There are no fees to set this program up from me. There are no fees from the state that I'm aware of. Okay, there are no fees from the state at all. So no, that we set this up for you for nothing. And I also, while we're on the money deal, I did want to point out that some of the benefits that we have once you're registered, if you hire a veteran and they qualify for the GI Bill, once they're registered in a registered apprenticeship program, not your in-house apprenticeship program, it has to be a federally registered apprenticeship program, they qualify for all of their GI Bill benefits. So they'll get a monthly stipend. In addition, if they work with their local vet source, they'll usually get their books and materials or tools paid for as well. So that's a very important thing to remember. Here in South Dakota, we value our vets greatly, and this is something that we can help them to get back what they have coming to them as part of their service.
Good point, John. Thank you.
And since it's a lull, I'll continue with that. If you're working a federally funded job, a Davis-Bacon job, having a registered apprenticeship program is critical to your success in making the bids, and here's why. When you have a Davis-Bacon job, you have to pay your journeyman the prevailing wage plus benefits. When you have an apprentice in the program, you pay them the percentage that they are at in the program of the prevailing wage. So if you have a first-year apprentice and your apprentices start at 60% of journeyman wage, that apprentice will also be paid 60% of the prevailing wage, but 100% of the benefits. We can never skimp on the benefits. That's critical when you bid a job. If you're bidding it with 4 journeymen and 4 apprentices, your labor costs are going to be a portion of what the competitor will be, who has to bid it at all journeyman costs. And so that's one way that you're able to get a contract, is because you have those lower labor costs with a registered apprenticeship program.
It's a good explanation, John. I feel like Davis-Bacon's always a hard one to explain, and you did that really good. I'm glad this is recorded for my benefit.
There you go.
Look back and say, what did John say about that again?
We're gonna have to do a worse job of this if there's no questions. We're just too good here.
It could be either we're too good or
Do you have one more? Jacqueline is going to ask here, could you share more about the information about sustainability section of the application and the narrative, and what information we would like to see included?
I'll take that one because that is related to the program development and expansion incentives. And really what we're looking for there is, aside from the startup funding that we can provide through this, are you going to be able to sustain your project without that funding after it's gone? So what is your sustainability plan? Maybe it's wages and what John talked about with like lower wages in the beginning with apprentices, but really once that startup money is gone to help build and get the program off the ground, how are you going to sustain that long term is really what we're looking for. And all that really needs to be is, doesn't have to be like a plan or a logic model, anything like that. It can just be written in, and you can kind of just tell us about that plan and what you see for that in that narrative. It can just be written out. You're welcome. What other stories can we tell, John?
No, I'll expand on what you said, that apprenticeship programs are not meant to be short-term programs. They're not meant to be registered for 1 or 2 apprentices. They're meant to be there for the years, to last throughout time, that you continue as you hire new people, you bring them into the apprenticeship program. So if you call the state or you call me and say, hey, I'd like to get a program going. I've got this federal job and I need to get these reduced wages in here. And I'm going to ask, what's your plan once this job's done? Well, we're not going to have it anymore. I'm not going to register a program with you at all. We don't do short-term programs. That probably sounded a lot more harsh than I really meant it to be. But it's just one of those things where we do get calls for people in all kinds of scenarios, and we just don't, it's not meant for short-term. It's meant for long-term.
That's good, John, because that's really the goal and the vision of registered apprenticeship is to train people long term. So that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that. Any other questions coming in? If not, too, we have our email in the chat. You can connect with us that way. We have information on our website. You can reach out to anybody in your local DLR office. They can connect with the team too if you have more questions that come up, or if you watch this recording or the other one that we did and you still have more questions, we can help assist with that as well. So if you're not comfortable asking here, that's okay. We can answer those questions at a later time too.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, John. Thanks for being here. We'll be in touch soon.
Thanks, everybody. All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.